Know what I mean?
Welcome to Ernest Roulette, the only Ernest podcast with a wheel.
Where's he going this time?
Ernest Goes to Jail. On Ernest Roulette, our mission is to spin the wheel until we've watched every feature Ernest film, and then rank them in order of quality. I think we might have peaked early. I wager Ernest Goes to Jail is the best Ernest film in the entire series.
Well, you can turn off the series now.
Yeah, you might as well stop watching. Ernest Goes to Jail, 1990, directed by John Cherry, released through Touchstone again. It's the third out of the Disney 4, financed by Disney. This one, on the heels of Ernest Saves Christmas, puts away some of the supernatural. Some.
It's more of an X-File, I think, than the other movies.
I'd say Ernest Goes to Jail is the one time they had the money and the opportunity to fully exploit Jim Varney in a feature film. Because, yes, the other Ernest movies heavily rely on him to carry them. Like we said with Camp, it's kind of rescued by the fact Varney's in it, right?
Right.
This movie, though, that was the commodity, is we're going to have Jim Varney play the two main characters. There's no Santa Claus to save this movie. There's no monsters. It's just all about Ernest brand humor.
Yeah, both Camp and Christmas could actually function. You could cut Ernest out of the movie, and the movie still has a plot that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't watch it, but yes, the movie would make sense.
Now, this movie, this commits a childhood sin of mine, which is the events depicted on the cover. Ernest trying to dig his way out of prison with a spoon. Does not happen in the movie. Do you remember being frustrated by that sort of thing as a kid?
I do.
That's a great poster, by the way.
It is. We were debating earlier, is this a painting or is it a photo? And I think it is just a photo of Ernest standing up, and then they
They did like some sort of chemical processing to
Yeah.
posterize the color space a bit, and then the rest might be a painting, like the rest of it around him. But whatever, like he didn't need to escape with a spoon.
Yeah, and I honestly, I think you wait a couple years for, what was it, Naked Gun 33 1/3, which has that prison escape scene.
Now, Ernest Goes to Jail is the Prince and the Pauper analog of the Ernest filmography.
Yeah.
And for those who haven't seen it, the story, they do everything they can to get 80 minutes out of this without it slowing down. I think the pratfall per minute quotient is really high in Ernest Goes to Jail.
Ernest, at the beginning of the movie, he is a janitor at a bank.
Yes.
And he's back in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep, he's in
Although
Nashville.
I would argue this takes place nowhere because they go to a few locations, but they don't really tip the hand of where they are. Really.
Yeah, you wondered out loud when we watched it, is this Florida? But I think it's Tennessee again.
I looked that up where they filmed it. It's Tennessee again. So let's cut to our Ernest map.
Where's Ernest this time?
Back in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So Ernest he's a janitor. He works at the bank. At the beginning of the movie, the two security guards, Chuck and Barry?
Bobby.
Thank you. Chuck and Bobby almost shoot him, but don't. Ernest reveals in his little soliloquy that his aspiration is to become
A bank clerk.
One of many, many Ernest speeches in this film.
Good God, this movie, I think, over relies on the Ernest soliloquies. He's talking into the camera constantly in this movie.
now is the winter of our discontent.
I think they play it
You know
as
what I mean?
if you've never seen an Ernest film, other characters get tired of hearing these speeches by the third one.
Yeah.
His glass ceiling in this film is, I want to become a bank clerk. He wanted to become a camp counselor before.
Yes, camp counselor at the camp. And in Christmas, he was a cab driver who worked a lot around the airport.
Yeah.
And now in this film, he can't drive. He is given a ride by his neighbors.
Yeah. In the next movie, Scared Stupid, he's back to driving a garbage truck.
Yeah.
He doesn't drive in this one. Now, Chuck and Bobby have a cool car. It's like kind of...
It's like a Ninja Turtles van.
Yeah, it's all multicolored camouflage.
It's fake camo, but it's not hiding.
Chuck and Bobby have a much bigger role in this movie.
This is the funniest they get.
I agree.
This is the last time they're both in a movie together.
Yeah, Gaylord Sartain
retires.
Jumps ship. He doesn't retire. He continued to be in things. He retires from the Ernest.
He never comes back.
The Ernest
verse, yes.
Yeah.
The Verniverse.
Bobby gets some really good gags in this. A lot of wide angle shots of him.
And as we talked about during our prep session, Bobby never blinks.
Yeah.
I did not notice that.
Not once does he ever blink.
I think this movie on the whole, makes the best use of physical comedy.
It is relevant to know at the beginning of the movie, he's using a power washer, not like a pressure washer, but a power like floor scrubber.
It's like a small Zamboni kind of thing. A floor waxer.
A floor waxer. An iceless Zamboni, yes, if you will.
Yeah.
And it takes him on a crazy ride. It goes up the ceiling and up the walls, and then Ernest flicks the switch. A bunch of soap comes out. A lamp gets knocked over into the soapy water, and Ernest is, for the first time in the film, electrocuted.
This is important.
Yes.
Because it happened. This is your X-Files angle.
Yeah.
It is kind of an X-Files.
It's a great gag, and they do Ernest magnetized 4 times in this movie.
Like 50 times.
50 times.
It gets to the point where it's like not a spoiler how it saves him in the end, really.
Maybe. I mean, if you haven't seen it before, because, we're in our 30s. We grew up on this movie. If you haven't seen Ernest Goes to Jail, stop this. Consider how much free time you have in your hands and then watch it.
It's exactly 81 minutes long.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is the first Ernest film with a true romantic side plot where Charlotte, his coworker, I think she likes him. He likes her.
She asks him on a date, and then as soon as he starts to think it's a date, she's like, no, it's not a date.
We're
So
just friends. I take pity on you.
But she kisses him.
she does in a friendly way. Yeah. I don't know.
I think she's smitten.
I think it's like barely above Nurse St. Clair.
It is.
Yeah. She treats him like a child.
She does. She's encouraging him. She tells Ernest he's got to break through the glass ceiling and become a bank clerk. Ernest gives a speech about how he believes in upward mobility and jobs, which is just so sweet. It's so sweet that he thinks he could do better.
Ernest is an idiot.
But the ABCs of this plot is Ernest gets called to jury duty.
And he is pumped.
He's so pumped to do his civic duty. And the Prince and the Pauper stuff comes in. There's this guy at the local prison named Nash.
Yeah, Nash.
Who looks exactly like Ernest.
It's true. Amazingly.
Amazingly. I don't know how they did it.
Nash and Ernest are almost never in the frame together.
They do it like twice. There's one really weak special effect where they put them in frame together and one pretty good special effect.
I'm pretty sure it's at minute 79 when they finally do the split screen, and it's not anything. This is a year after Back to the Future Part 2.
Looks like I got myself another hostage. Too bad. I thought you were dead. Not yet.
Ernest gets called to jury duty. And that's where the story of this movie wants to go.
When he's in the courtroom, one of Nash's accomplices, one of his gang members, a guy named Ruben, the defendant, sees Ernest and goes to his lawyer, that guy looks just like Nash. And he concocts a plan that they actually, it's really more shown than told. They're going to convince them, the jurors, plural, need to come to the prison to see the scene of the crime.
Yes.
And by doing that, they get Ernest in jail. They lure Ernest behind a dumpster. Bam, cartoon logic. Nash puts on Ernest's clothes. Ernest puts on Nash's clothes.
Ernest trivia. The judge in the courtroom scene is played by Doris from Dr. Otto.
What was it? You just said it earlier.
Yes, there's the wonderful actress named Jackie Welch, who was Doris in Dr. Otto.
Yes.
And the animal officer in Ernest Saves Christmas.
I noticed she shows up. I was looking at, if you click around in the cast, some of them are real actors. I mean, they're all real actors, but some of them are specifically actors who've mostly only been in other Ernest movies.
Sure.
There is it's a Robert Altman-esque stable of actors that John Cherry III likes to work with.
The attorney for Ruben, Nash's guy. Is from
a guy named Jeffrey Ford was also the jerk who worked for Sherman Crater. The guy who was from camp.
He looks exactly the same. Same haircut,
same lawyer,
clothes,
right?
Like same lawyer. It's like the Lionel Hutz of this universe.
Their swap works, right?
Well, the thing about the swap that bothers me is we see Nash in prison earlier in the movie. We don't get a good look at his face. And the funny thing about watching this on Blu-ray
it's clearly
Jim Varney. And they're trying to play it all mysterious, like, why don't we see this guy's face? Why is there all this silhouette work? If you're watching it on VHS in 1992, maybe you wouldn't be able to see it.
Do you remember being taken in by this at all?
As a kid, yeah.
Okay.
I actually think the scene where they introduce Nash in silhouette in the prison looks a lot like the Jack Palance introduction in Tango and Cash.
Yeah, which came out a year
Which came out while they were filming Ernest Goes to Jail.
Ah, the infamous Cash and Tango. And who are you? Just think of me as somebody who doesn't like you very much.
So there's a lot of Tango and Cash. There's a lot of face-off.
Yes, there's a lot of face-off. And I find it funny that the Ernest creatives, their model for serious, dark prison material was Tango and Cash.
There is, yeah.
While Ruben in the courtroom looks over to the lawyer and says, I'm telling you, he's perfect. I feel like the movie's implying that Ruben and Nash have had this plan for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't that come off that way? Like, tonally, like...
I hadn't thought about it till we discussed, but I totally see it now.
They see Ernest in the courtroom and
They're like-
he like whispers in his ear for like 1 second. It's like, he's basically saying like, hey, remember that plan I had about like switching with an identical copy of Nash?
Yeah.
Well, that guy looks just like him. Let's do it. All right.
Oh, man, I don't know about this idea.
Yeah. Well, this is the perfect moment to like get the jury to come to the jail.
Have you ever seen The Man in the Iron Mask? No, that film comes out later. Have you read the book? He just looks like Nash, okay?
It's Prince of the Pauper.
Yes. Yeah,
Holy
the
shit,
Prince of
I
the Pauper.
forgot this is the Man in the Iron Mask.
So...
Okay, that's the precedent there, I guess.
Ernest is now in jail as
Ernest
Nash.
in the Iron Mask.
And they threaten Ernest by saying that the guy Ruben, the criminal, tells Ernest, even if you tell people you're Ernest, everyone's laughing at you and thinking you're crazy. But if you don't play ball, the real Nash out there pretending to be Ernest can really hurt the people you care about.
It's Spider-Man logic.
Yes.
Why do you suppose they are trying to keep up the ruse instead of just killing Ernest once he's in the jail?
They want to keep Nash out and free. They want to tie up every loose end. And Nash is actually on death row, which means when Ernest gets switched in during the juror visit, Ernest will be killed in, I don't know, a week, whatever it is, 30 minutes movie world time. That'll be it. No one will suspect it. No one will figure out that Nash and Ernest...
So they're just waiting out the clock.
Yes.
Rather than going to the trouble.
They don't want
of
anyone
killing
asking
him.
any questions.
Ruben's going to get out in 5 months, provided that Nash can bully the jury, and that works. And
Yeah,
then
they very
Nash-
elegantly...
Yeah.
They have like one nervous juror glance down at Nash and say like, not guilty, we're sure. And that's it. That's all you need to know.
And the judge goes, have you examined the evidence? Like, yes, we're frightened. Yeah, we're frightened. This is a frightened, intimidated jury. So Ernest realizes and I timed it at the 30-minute mark, the 30 out of 80 minutes, 30 minutes to the dot. Oh my God.
I'm in jail!
Let's talk about the cinematography of this movie.
Okay.
This is the best looking Ernest movie by a mile.
It's the most looking Ernest by a mile.
Okay, well, we all agree Ernest Goes to Camp is too vanilla looking, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
boring
it's very
looking,
plain.
very boring
So is
looking.
Christmas.
Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam, pretty creative looking at times.
Yeah, but it also has deserts of interesting looking
Everything
things.
that Dr. Otto has, this movie's got in spades. It's got that like the lightning roto effect that we love.
Sure.
The color, the costume designs, the prison stuff. They do a lot of like magenta and blue, just fill light with tons of shadow work.
Yeah.
It makes the gray and green prison garb just pop.
This is a real quintessential 1990 movie. That year specifically, I feel like there's a lot of movies that use over the top like backlighting and
Pink.
and pancake makeup and
Yeah.
stuff. And just there's a certain look to movies that came out right around then. Just kind of garish, like Dick Tracy.
I think they were adjusting to film stock evolution.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that transition from like 88 to 89, like some cinematographers maybe weren't ready for it.
Absolutely.
I think it's a treat to look at.
Once Ernest gets into the prison, they show the prison before that, and it doesn't look too crazy. But once he's in there, it's pink lights, blue, green. It's just like every color gel possible.
This is a world where if someone has money, it's in a sack with a dollar sign on it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right? Once Ernest arrives, but before that, it's Tango and Cash prison land. So Ernest is going to be in prison while Nash is out and about in the real world impersonating him. And this is where I think the funniest stuff in this movie comes from.
Yeah, the first thing that Ernest does, he still thinks he's a juror being taken on a tour.
Yeah.
That's funny until he realizes it because they can't do that the whole movie.
Yeah.
Then when he knows he's in prison,
Unfortunately.
he tries to tell the truth. That doesn't work either. He
Yeah.
goes, okay, then I have to break out of prison.
I got to save Charlotte.
I've got to save Charlotte. Got to get out of here.
And then it becomes a Wile E. Coyote cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was now another hill of ignorance we have to climb is when Ernest realizes, oh no, I'm not just in prison pretending to be a prisoner. The inmate I'm impersonating is on death row. They're going to kill me.
You're going to the row.
Row? Well, what's that?
As in death, you know. Death row.
Oh, well, death row? You mean like the chair? The hot seat? Dead meat, deep six, it's over, pal. You're out of here, bub. The groundhogs are bringing you mail. You're picking turnips with a stepladder, like the no tomorrow.
And on top of that, he's being, strong-armed into acting tough.
Yes.
So there's a few scenes where they're like following him around and making sure that he's bullying other prisoners.
There's that scene where he has to arm wrestle Spider.
Spider, yeah.
And that's another scene where we get a cameo from
Dr. Otto.
Some jackass, yeah.
The Spider scene is great. Like all these prisoners have such faces, man. Like they're all in league with Varney in terms of just face acting. Like Ruben, Lyle, all these people just have these gnarly faces that when you underlight them, they just look like ghastly, like flashlight monsters.
Yeah, they do.
This is a sweaty, sticky looking movie when they're in the prison.
They
Yeah.
make the prisoners look kind of fun to hang out with, though. Like they're PG prisoners.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like they're like lifting
Except
weights.
for the one who's like a murderer.
Do we want to talk about the warden?
Yes.
Everyone calls him Warden. And every scene he's in, someone goes, Warden, over here.
Just minding my own business, Warden.
Hey, Warden.
Yeah, right, Warden.
You'll never get away with this.
Oh, yeah, Warden.
This is Warden Carmichael.
Warden. Yeah, I hear you, Warden.
Nobody has ever escaped this facility since I've been the warden.
Yeah.
It's
He's
the
a
warden.
very important warden. He leaves the prison and he still has authority. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
He's still the warden of
They treat him
life.
like a senator.
Yeah. So he's played by Charles Napier, who, if you've seen Silence of the Lambs,
Yes.
which came out 1 year later.
Yeah, he's got a face.
He's got a face. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he's the prison guard he's one of the two prison guards who's looking after
Dr. Lecter.
Dr. Lecter when he's
In the elephant cage, this preposterous thing that we
Yeah.
don't use in the whatever.
yeah, he's the one who gets handcuffed and Dr. Lecter beats him in a very fancy way.
He finally gets to kill someone.
Yeah, but the shot of him screaming about to be beaten to death is him like handcuffed to prison bars, and it looks a lot like a shot from Ernest Goes to Jail.
You're right.
And I kind of think that they were casting Silence of the Lambs, and maybe they worked with someone or they watched Ernest Goes to Jail and they're like, that guy.
He's fantastic.
He's good, yeah.
He's got probably the best line of the movie. Nash, though. Let's get back to Nash.
Okay.
Evil Ernest.
Slicked back hair.
If you were a kid, you'd call him Evil Ernest. To me, he's Nash.
I'm calling him Dark Ernest.
He's the Frank
Which,
Grimes.
by the way, I just want to clear the air. Ryan is dressed as Dark Ernest today.
Dark Ernest this time.
But it's an accident because you couldn't find the right
lost
shade of
my
gray.
shirt, yeah.
Okay.
We'll fix it next time.
Or in post.
As an adult, Nash is the Frank Grimes to me of the Ernest universe.
Yeah, he doesn't find Ernest to be likable. His Rube Goldberg, Pee Wee Herman house is annoying. He's mean to the dog.
Well, he's
doesn't
just kind of like a ghost floating through Ernest's life, though. It's like he and Ernest aren't in the same room. He's piecing together the puzzle that is Ernest.
It's a great perspective study for Nash to be a funny villain and not just like a weird, like violent bank robber that assaults women.
and is mean to dogs.
They had to come up with half an hour of humor for him. And so that's
the angle, yeah.
They have to do homework early on for the audience where we see Ernest's home life for the first time with any real detail. We see Ernest home alone. We see him hang out with his friends. We see him go on a date. That date scene's fantastic.
Yes.
So we need all this information over the first 20 minutes. So when Nash shows up, Nash can be exposed to all this stuff that we've seen. It's probably a great way to save money too. Like just go back to the same sets. Yeah. But writing wise, it's great. It's a great writing economy to see Nash walk into Ernest's house, look at all this stupid stuff, and just say out loud,
This is pathetic. This guy's better off in jail.
He does toy trains and rubber chickens and rubber darts. He's like, I don't give a shit. I'm
it's
not doing
real.
this.
He's looking around like, Pee Wee Herman did this better.
Yeah, it's like a real C grade Pee Wee Herman, Brazil,
I'm more of a Beekman man myself.
chitty chitty bang bang. Like I was laughing at Ernest using is like a clothes washer early on. No, it's when he's brushing his teeth with the machine. If you look at all the machinery, there's literally just candy hot glued onto these props to make it eye candy, to make it funner for kids to look at.
Yeah.
It's shiny and it's colorful and it's
Someone in production design was like, "This looks like shit. Give me $20 of candy. I'll turn this up."
Hey, you got any Twizzlers?
Got any Coke cans? Oh, wait, they're not paying for the movie anymore.
No.
I was looking for Coke products. I didn't see them. The
Me
only
neither.
product placement I saw, I think there's an ad for American Airlines inside the bank.
There was a Bic pen
no planes in the-
billboard for the Bic.
Oh, yeah.
Bic.
Oh, and he bites a Bic pen too.
He doesn't make them look good, though.
No.
The evidence, I'm sure you'll agree with me that the charges against my client, Mr. Bartlett.
Leading into the final act, Ernest is in a prison cell by himself. It's death row. And he gives his last big soliloquy.
So it's come to this. A pointless, miserable end to a shallow, meaningless life.
There's the silhouette of death next to him.
But it's as it should be. It's the hand I've been dealt, and I have to play it as it lays. Oh, I'm not going to cry because life's thrown me a curve. I'm not going to whine because I got mashed potatoes when French fries is what I really wanted. It's time for me to step up to the plate, belly up to the bar. It's time for me to look fate square in the eye, flare my nostrils, breathe life's last breath. It's time for me to lie down with lions so I can soar with the eagles. All right.
And then in the end, the guard comes, knocks, and goes, Nash, it's time to go. And he doesn't make some joke about a last meal or about itchy socks or something. He just says,
I don't want to die.
earlier in the film, he was intimidated by a book with too many words and no pictures. He's not ready for death.
I agree that he comes off very, like, genuinely scared, and it is sad. Like, the violin plays, you're like, Ernest doesn't deserve this.
No.
Like, he's going to.
So they bring him to the chair, and then he does another solo, or he starts to as the final words.
Giving his final, because if there's ever a time to like make it stretch it out, it's when they're gonna murder you.
Just like they should just be glad he doesn't launch into Aunt Nelda again while he's
looking around. Priest rolls his eyes of like, is this taking forever?
The priest not wanting to hear it too is great, because as the audience you're like, this is like the 8th speech in like 60 minutes. And then the warden's like literally like, can we make this happen faster?
Can't you speed things up?
Okay.
I don't want to be in this movie anymore.
For those familiar with the criminal justice system, death row and the infinite series of appeals, this is not an accurate reflection between being on death row to being put in the chair. They do cover that.
They have Nash's lawyer talking to Ernest saying, I'm sorry, our final appeal did not go through.
Final appeal.
And then Ernest says, what does he say? He says like, oh, well, that's the last time I hire you.
You, pal, you're not getting any more of my business.
There could not have been any tension here, right? Like you know what's going to happen. It's so telegraphed that, he can't get electrocuted. It's the one thing he's done in this movie is get electrocuted over and over.
Yeah, you can't kill him with electricity. And like, he's not even like, he's like, there's like a foot or two between him and like the headpiece of the electric chair. And like 2 feet of electricity gets him.
It's like watching like, oh no, Popeye's gonna get in a fight. It's like
at the spinach factory.
At the spinach.
What'll happen?
Well, how's he gonna get out of this one?
What's gonna happen?
But he gets electrocuted, and
Neil, you bring that up, and that's such a valid point. He's just so stupid.
But when you're like 7 years old, you think it's clever. Like,
I think I did.
Ernest can't be killed with electricity.
I shouldn't be afraid of this.
Ernest has this one. And then like, as a kid, this was clearly the best part of the movie, right? When you were a kid, this was the part you wanted to fast forward to.
Yeah, watching it now, it kind of unlocked something. I think I must have found it a little bit scary as a kid, because he like gets up from the chair and he's doing a zombie walk, and the music kind of gets scary, and there's all this garish horror lighting, and it kind of turns into spooky, like a weird Evil Dead thing.
He's not sentient for a moment, and no one knows what's going on. The priest doesn't know what's going on. The lawyer is there, I believe. The warden, like everyone's like, what is?
I guess a guy who's a doctor who's wearing a white. I was gonna say, for me, it was more of a Frankenstein than a zombie.
Sure.
Potato, whatever.
But when that moment happens, there's this really eerie music, and then the most badass music cue out of the entire filmography hits. I'll put it in right now.
Hit the alarm! Up for it! Code 7, let's go!
Suddenly, the most expensive sequence of the movie begins.
Oh yeah, the camera's moving and everything. It's
everything's in focus.
Yeah, no, it looks cool. They make good use of the big outdoor sets and the really high, floodlights and stuff. and it's even raining a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool while he's just outside, like zapping guys.
Zodding people.
Zodding?
He says, I'll zot you to someone.
You better watch out, Reuben. I'll zot you.
Yeah, trademark.
Trademark Zot.
Zot.
So Ernest causes a prison riot, opens all the doors. The guards come after him. He can use his lightning to zap their guns and blow things up and cause sparks and crazy stuff. Blows up the spotlight, blows up the guards' guns until he's just about to get out. And Reuben is there, and he gives Reuben a warning. You better let me go. You know what I mean? And then this tiny amount of like pitiful pixie dust falls out of his fingers. He has no powers left. Reuben's about to strike him, and Lyle comes and we'll get back to Lyle. Lyle's a wonderful
The bad
character.
guy turns heel. He goes good.
Yes.
He breaks good.
He breaks good.
And he's played by, what's his name?
The Coen Brothers guy.
Yeah, he was in, it's a Tex something, Tex Cobb.
He's a boxer.
Yeah, he was a boxer. He played, if you've ever seen Raising Arizona, which is it's kind of like a good version of an Ernest movie. I love Raising Arizona. He plays the tracker who has a weird nose.
Yeah.
Talks like this.
But the whole movie, he knows what's going to happen to Ernest. Ernest doesn't know when he gets to prison, even when he accepts that he's in jail.
Yeah.
And that he has to stay in jail to protect Charlotte. He doesn't know he's on death row.
Right.
Lyle knows. Like,
Yeah,
for
and
most of
Lyle
the
starts
movie.
to feel sorry for him, like, oh, this poor fool, you know?
Yeah, Ernest.
Lyle's a
deserves
big,
it.
scary guy, but it turns out he has a moral center.
Lyle
He's
doesn't
a good
talk
guy.
into the scene, right?
He's like the Native American in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Sure.
He's a big
Chief,
guy
yeah.
who was there to help. And yeah, like
Do you think
when
they ever
Jack-
pitched Ernest Flies Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I bet they did.
They have the line Ernest gives after Lyle finally talks is literally, Lyle, you talked. That's great.
By the way, they do the same thing with Bobby. Bobby does not talk in this movie until he gets a big line at the end.
Yeah. They use
It's a theme, I guess.
They use every like easy plot contrivance possible to make this movie feel like a movie. And it's still barely 80 minutes long.
There's like 2 plot lines in this movie.
Yeah. They overcompensate for like, if we're going to make this really an Ernest feature, not just Ernest in a movie that could exist without him, they pull out all the stops. They do everything they can to pull, like there's a lot of, the editing's better than any other Ernest movie. The finale that we're in the midst of is fantastic looking, better than the actual apex of the movie in the next scene.
Yeah.
It looks a lot better than the actual.
It does,
ending.
yes.
Yeah.
So in the end, Nash is going to rob the bank, and Ernest comes out to fight him. Charlotte and Chuck have both been handcuffed and tied up to the door of the vault with a bomb on it. So the time is ticking. We have a precious amount and Nash and Ernest need to fight.
Mm-hmm.
There's a weird thing about the fact that Bobby is there, and Bobby has been extremely like hostile and on edge and holding his gun every scene.
He gets knocked out.
Yes.
Because they have a duel. Nash
There's
and
a
Bobby.
lot of shit flying around. But yeah, Bobby's whole power in this movie is he has a gun and he's shooting it all the time.
All the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like over the course of the movie, when Nash begins to acclimate and figure out the life of Ernest, whose shoes he's now stepped into, where I think the best humor of the film comes from, Bobby's sniffing him out like a dog.
Yeah,
Bobby's
onto him.
paranoia, because he is paranoid. We see he needs ID from even his own brother. He's not trustworthy of Ernest himself. He has a gun pointed at Ernest in scene 1. His irrational paranoia is right.
He shoots a gingerbread cookie that's in front of the camera in one scene, and it's a great,
cool.
it's a great.
He
sight
just shoots.
gag.
Yeah.
It's a good effect.
Burn him.
Ernest runs in front of a targeting range reticle, and he's like tap dancing around it, and made me think of the end of Ernest Goes to Camp. Like, oh, he's fine.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the bullets.
Ernest, you can't be shot. Didn't you see the first movie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nash and Ernest start their fight. They're now both dressed the same way, right? So we can have this crazy finale where which one's the real Ernest?
They don't do that.
They don't exploit that at all.
They don't. Instead, it's just visually confusing.
You think Bobby's gonna like have to pick the real Ernest? They don't do that.
Nope.
They just have Ernest get thrown by Nash into this electrical prison that has 20,000 volts or something.
It's like a cage that Bobby and
200.
Chuck installed that drops down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's electrified. And as soon as you see that it's electrified earlier in the movie, you're like,
yeah,
Ernest is gonna touch it.
yeah. That's yeah.
After he and the floor waxer defeat Nash, Nash goes through a crazy ride because of the floor waxer, and they knock Nash out. We're in the clear. Ernest grabs the bomb and goes up and breaks through the glass ceiling. Oh.
He flies it off into space.
And like Ewan McGregor at the end of Angels and Demons or The Iron Giant or Superman.
Yeah, why don't you name a movie
Batman,
people care about? Yeah.
That he flies up in the air and gets the bomb, explodes up in the safe. Everyone else on the ground is safe.
Wait, can Ewan McGregor fly in that movie?
He has a helicopter.
Okay.
So I was going to say yes. That's way more questions than answers.
Ernest literally says, up, and away. And he flies
and this
off.
is the best line of the movie. The warden is outside with the police.
This is so good. So the warden...
He's trying to arrest either of these guys,
I
right?
first heard this on an Ernest podcast. I believe it was Ernest Goes To Podcast.
Okay.
And they pointed out the best line of the movie is given by the warden. Like we mentioned earlier, the warden has some weird amount of authority in this town. The warden is outside with the rest of the police watching the bank. Probably because that actor, Charles Napier, is the most expensive actor in the movie, and they wanted to get more out of him. But he's out there, all the guys have their guns aimed at the bank, and Ernest flies out holding the bomb like Superman. And as he flies off into the sky...
And he's like a mile away.
And it cuts back to the warden, and he goes,
Getting away.
he doesn't question that he's flying. He's just like, damn it. And that's the last time we see the warden.
You're right.
Yeah.
I don't see him again.
Best line in the movie.
Sure, yeah.
So in the end, Nash wakes up, grabs a gun, gets both the police and the SWAT team and the warden and the prison guards to go follow them there, gets everyone to drop your weapons. Ernest's charred body lands on Nash, knocks him out. Ernest gets up and says, I came, I saw, I got blowed up. Thank you.
Yes.
They cut off the original ending. You can find the original ending on YouTube. I guess they showed it on some TV versions of the movie on ABC's Wonderful World of Disney in the 90s. But no, that's it. I came, I saw, and I got blown up.
And then he's saying this to the camera, and then he just passes out.
Bugs Bunny style.
Yeah, it feels like a Daffy Duck ending. Like you hear the WB theme play after
In your
pretty
head.
much.
Yeah.
This movie came out kind of in the middle of a Looney Tunes resurgence. It was after Roger Rabbit. It was around the same time as like Gremlins 2.
Sure. A little before Space Jam.
A little before Space Jam.
Ernest has always been a cartoon.
Yeah.
He literally flew Santa Claus's sleigh around
He
the
did,
world.
but that movie built up to that. That happens right towards the end of the movie, whereas this movie is just insane from the beginning.
Out of the gate, there are sentient metallic objects attacking him. When he gets magnetized the first time, there are filing cabinets coming after him. As you pointed out, Ryan, there are swords in this bank.
Why does this bank have so many swords?
Basically, from the start of the movie, it feels like a cartoon short.
Sure.
And then it goes on for 80 minutes.
But that's like why you're here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Here's my issue with this movie that I want to talk about a little bit. I think Ernest does work a little better when he is in a world that is slightly more grounded and there are other people who are actual human beings and not cartoon characters. And he is there as kind of an annoyance, as a pest, as someone you can relate to knowing. That's his whole shtick, is he's the annoying neighbor. That's where he comes from.
But is that ever really that funny? Outside of the commercials? Because the only time...
I think you're right. I think this movie does reach higher comedic heights because of how outlandish and bizarre it is.
Yes.
But I think it is at the expense of being a much more annoying movie. This movie is what people assume Ernest movies are like, if they've never seen them.
I would say that, early in the movie, there's a scene where Chuck and Bobby are listening to some song. I think it's called My Tree Climbing Shoes or The Coconut Shoes or something. And Chuck and Bobby are just hanging out in the bank, doing kind of nothing. They're not given any real direction, apparently, as Ernest is flying around in the background, he's getting hurt by the floor waxer.
Yeah.
Right? And that's when I wrote a note down, like, this movie does not observe straight man logic for humor.
It doesn't.
Like, there's no straight man. Then
It
Nash
upsets
shows
me,
up.
actually.
Then Nash shows up, and that's how you do a straight man joke in Ernest, is you make the newcomer. They did Frank Grimes 8 years before Frank Grimes.
But Nash does not interact with Ernest. He becomes Ernest.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of it. Everyone else in the world, because they're kind of goofy, like Charlotte, even the love interest, is just a little too okay with how ridiculous and pathetic this world is. Like Nash walking around, like every step of the way, every plot contrivance, he calls attention to.
Didn't you notice the floors are actually clean? And she goes, oh, you're right, it's not Ernest.
Look,
I am not this Ernest guy. I just happen to look like him. I switched with him, you get it?
You what?
And look at the floors. You notice how clean they've been lately?
You are an imposter.
Every delivery, Jim Varney's range in this movie is wonderful. He doesn't have to do a million characters. He does like a few imitations.
Nelda does show up. He does do a
montage of impersonations.
Yeah,
but it's truncated. It's very quick.
Yeah.
Nash is the real like acting range on display. It's not like the best performance ever made, but it is a strong performance. It's a completely different end of the spectrum, but it somehow fits. It doesn't feel too fish out of water. Like when he walks
feels
up,
a little too dark, I'd say.
He's a bit, but I think they afford it with the humor. We mentioned earlier how we observe Ernest's life for the first 20 minutes of the movie. So then when Nash walks through and goes, I work at a bank.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff. He's aware like, oh, I'm in an Ernest movie.
I guess.
That's what, to me, that's how you do the straight man humor.
Yeah.
I find Nash much funnier than the straight man stuff and say, Ernest Saves Christmas. The only like straight man stuff I found funny in Ernest Goes to Camp was the rock, paper, scissors joke where Ernest making light of Native American culture fell on deaf ears, but it's one joke.
Right.
This movie, it's every scene with Nash. The stuff that Ryan and I were cackling at the scene where Nash, by the end of the movie, just doesn't care. He just doesn't care about pretending he's Ernest anymore.
He's wiring a bomb to the door with a blueprint out and tells them, I'm robbing the bank. I'm going to take the money out that you're paid to protect. I'm going to take the money when I'm robbing the bank because I'm robbing the bank.
He says it three times in like 30 seconds. He's like playing chicken with the narrative of the movie.
That's it. Is everyone who works here a moron? Can't you see what I'm doing? I'm robbing the bank. I'm gonna blow the safe, take the money, and leave. I'm robbing the bank. I'm stealing the money that you were paid to protect. I'm robbing the bank.
In the previous scene, he's talking to Charlotte. Like there's a buildup to his apathy. Charlotte asks, "Oh, you gonna clean the place tonight, Ernest?" And he goes, "Oh yeah."
Tonight I'm gonna clean out the whole place.
Which isn't a euphemism for cleaning.
No,
directly.
I'm going to steal the money.
That out there that gives away the game. That word out, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sorry to just like keep being the Gene Siskel here, but it's I'm just thinking back on, Ernest Saves Christmas. It's an effective Christmas movie. It's got the stuff with the bag. That's not a joke. It's supposed to, be kind of magical and fill you with the Christmas spirit. Yeah. Ernest Goes to Camp has the Native American environmental protection stuff that's pretty serious.
Yeah.
This movie has none of that stuff. This movie is just a cartoon with no real consideration and no real emotion.
It is truly the first Ernest vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for an undercurrent to a theme of this movie. And at the very beginning, Charlotte is talking with Ernest about, quote, "You've got to have faith in the system."
Ernest, you gotta believe in yourself. You've gotta have faith in the system.
If you're a good enough janitor, you'll become a bank.
You've got to have faith in the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
The system works. Doing your job works. Paying your taxes. Being a friend. And in the end, Ernest acknowledges, because Charlotte doesn't realize it's Nash yet until he just goes, I'm not Ernest. And he says,
Your dedicated public servants down in the state pen put him in the chair hours ago.
the system is why Ernest is going to get murdered in the electric chair. An innocent man is going to fry.
Sure.
You just need to do what's supposed to do. Like, yeah, and sometimes innocent people go to jail. That's the system. Sometimes innocent people get fried in the chair.
This movie
That's
does
the
make
system.
that case.
I think that the movie is clearly more of a cartoon. You use the word annoying. I think the movie embraces
it's annoying in a funny way.
Like Ernest Goes to Camp, which I think is like kind of like the standard Ernest movie. Like I think there are better and inferior movies. That's kind of like the C. Like to me, that's the Ernest movie. Like, can they be better? Can they be? I think they throw out some of that middle ground they tiptoe into in that movie. Where like, is it a kids movie? Is it for teenagers?
Yeah.
Is it an Ernest movie or not? This is like just go all in, put 500 on red. This is an Ernest vehicle. And this is what you're going to get. Like that dinner scene early on where Charlotte and Ernest go out for dinner and he's been magnetized from preparing for the dinner, is hilarious. Like it's edited and acted funnier than anything in the preceding 3 movies, I think. It's like, what, like 60 seconds? It's really...
It's like Marx Brothers.
There are
It's really
multiple just like comedy routines in this movie that are like pretty top class. Not top class, but for an Ernest movie, they're top class.
They're better than things you'd see in Jim Carrey vehicles, which have like $100 million.
Yeah, him like biting the pen while he's on the jury. And
oh my God, if you look that up on YouTube, if you just YouTube search guy bites pen or white guy bites pen, you'll find this video, and people didn't accredit Ernest.
Well, they think like, oh, this is actual like trial footage or something.
Yeah, like it's the funniest thing. Like Ryan pointed out, like what'd you say? Like you think the script just said Ernest bites a pen?
Ernest bites a pen. That's probably the stage direction. Like,
oh, like
go.
Yeah, it was supposed to be short.
And they get like 2 minutes of crying laughter out of people like me. I think it's so funny just to watch Varney with no cuts.
Just trying to act casual with like ink all over his face.
He's got like wax covered notebook paper and he can't quite get the ink off, and he's looking around just making a little bit of noise, and the judge notices.
Tries to wipe it off with a piece of paper and it gets to where he's like, I'm just going to eat it to like dispose of the evidence. Like, what's this plan?
I was watching this with a friend the other day, and during this scene, she said, this is kind of making me feel nauseous. Like,
there's nowhere for the joke to hide. It's just Varney, the camera's rolling, and they're like, all right, go. I'd love to see the outtakes of that.
Oh, yeah.
One take Varney. There's probably no outtakes.
True.
Yeah.
So there's like, I'd say there's like 10 highlights to this movie. Whereas Ernest Saves Christmas, to me, only really had like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like scenes that are like, they had like the snake guy scene in Ernest Saves Christmas and the first person Vern scene, which is really good. That's kind of it for me in that movie.
Yeah.
Whereas in Camp doesn't even really have like...
It never turns it off.
It never like ascends to those heights of like the snake guy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This has
Jail
like,
never turns it off is what I mean, yeah.
And it's got like 10 of them. Like if you find Ernest annoying, none of these movies are going to work for you.
No,
which is why I think it's categorically better than the rest of them. Like I think what they sacrifice to make it just straight up a kids movie that people like us who know movie tropes will still laugh at. Like what's the name of the boss? Pendle Smythe?
Pendle Smythe, yes.
Yeah.
Every scene
he calls him Poodle Smurf at one point.
And Mr. Poodle Smurf is lucky to have me on his team. Good morning, Mr. Puddle Smoot, Smiddlepit, Smoodlepoot.
Poodle Smythe.
Yep.
Ernest can't remember his boss's name.
Yeah.
That actor is right out of like a D grade like
commercial, like a cereal commercial,
or like an Animal House knockoff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like Ernest, you're ugly.
How dare you work at my bank? And then he never fires him.
Yeah. Of this bank.
There should be no goofing and tomfoolery while you watch the museum at night. Like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Just look at you. You are a poor excuse for a member of the human race. You idiot. You and that big nose and ugly face have caused so much trouble around here. I should be given a medal for tolerating you. Can't you get anything right? What's the matter with your hair? Is that some sort of punk thing, huh? Why are you such a screw-up?
But this like bank president kind of illustrates the tone of the movie, which is everyone is a total character.
Nobody would be like this in Ernest Goes to Camp.
Exactly.
Except that construction worker guy.
Well,
who doesn't talk.
Yeah, no, even that guy was just kind of like, you know, he
the
was just
land
a bully,
baron,
you know?
who was a villain, was a real a man. He was an adult.
Yeah, like that guy was a monster, but he was like kind of a realistic monster. Whereas in this movie, it's just like, oh, how dare you, Ernest, my golf trophy, you know? It's just
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like
Ernest breaks the golf trophy.
It's such a break from the movies that came before this. And it is such a quintessentially, this is Ernest from this point on.
What is crazier? Electricity giving Ernest superpowers, or the existence of Santa Claus in Flying Reindeer?
But just think about how the stories are told, how Santa Claus is handled.
The whole point of that movie is there's one supernatural thing.
There's one supernatural thing, and it's not a Goonie, you know, like, I'm Santa Claus. Like, it's just like Santa Claus is a realistic, like, kindly old man, and there's a little bit of heart to it, and it's cute watching him, you know, do his thing.
But this is funnier. The scene where Ernest takes a bar of soap and whittles it into a gun.
Mm-hmm. Like a semi-automatic gun.
It's physically impossible because there's a bar of soap this big. The camera tilts down, tilts
a big
back
pile
up.
of soap at his feet.
He makes this impossibly big gun. That's kind of funny. What's really funny about this scene is when Ernest aims the gun at the guard. He's like, "Hey, let me out of here!"
Yeah.
Right, and the gun goes flaccid.
Yes,
and then everyone like is unimpressed by Ernest, and then Ernest like keeps rambling, like
he's like laughing nervous. Like,
Assault rifle on a rope. The perfect gift for the mercenary who has everything.
Then in the background, someone says like, "Shut up, Nash." By the way, I was curious
It's like
about
a Simpsons season 7 joke closer where they would just have someone go, "Hey, shut up." Like that's
it's funny. Yeah. So there was like a Sam and Max comic that I remembered that has the same joke where someone whittles a bunch of bars of soap into a semi-automatic weapon. I was trying to figure out like, oh, which one came first? But apparently in 1988, there was a news article. Someone really did whittle a handgun out of soap.
It's a good gag.
It is a good gag. And back in the 30s, John Dillinger made one out of wood. So I guess it's just like, that's where that joke comes from.
I think this has my favorite Auntie Nelda joke so far. And that is when Ernest, through his Wile E. Coyote montage of attempted escapes, dresses up as Auntie Nelda and tries to guilt a guard into letting him out because Auntie Nelda will talk to the guard's mother about how disappointed she was in him.
He pretends like, oh, I was visiting my son in prison. And now in the previous movies, Nelda talks about how her son is dead.
Yeah.
He's been downgraded to in prison now.
Yeah. But like the natural comedic timing on Varney here is pretty good. Like when the balls fall.
I'll tell your mother how her son has improved despite his shaded and somewhat checkered past. The doctor told me I'd only have to wear these until after the surgery.
The guards have these huge pink costumes. They look like the Goombas from the live action it's a Super Mario Brothers film. They have these fascinating, something I didn't notice until I'd rewatched the film 2 weeks ago. They have these clocks on top of their hats. To like show that like you're in here forever. The time is, we're the police. We're not just the police of watching over you. We're the police of your time here.
There's not a dry moment in the movie, visually speaking. Every scene's fun to look at. We're taking all the training wheels off here. This is just the Jim Varney vehicle. And I think maybe that's why I appreciate it so much. If you're a fan of Ernest, I don't see how this wouldn't be your favorite Ernest movie.
The intro credits we should talk about.
Saul Bass.
Yeah, they are like a James Bond intro.
Yes.
There are all these silhouettes of Varney. And that is one thing I do like about the Ernest movies, at least the ones that I remember, is they'd all have different kind of stylized introductions with Ernest doing faces and stuff.
It looks like an iPod commercial.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually going to say, for the kids at home, the iPod commercials are based on way, way earlier stuff to go, oh, are the iPod commercials based on the Ernest credits? No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Shawshank Redemption, based on Ernest Goes to Jail.
Do you guys think the opening theme song sounds a little too much like Aqualung?
No. It's very similar, yeah.
Once you said it, it's right in front of you. The answer is yes.
Ernest Trivia. This is the first movie with Rimshot.
Yes.
One of 2 movies with Rimshot.
I looked it up because I was kind of hoping Rimshot would be in some of the later direct-to-video movies, but nope, 2 Rimshots. So same dog actor, too.
This is like the first Jack Russell Terrier I remember in a movie.
Yeah, I think that they got really big after The Mask. Jim Carrey, who is such a Jim Varney ripoff, right? Stealing the same dog.
I think he owes more to Matt Frewer.
Yeah. The actor who plays Lyle is in Ace Ventura.
True.
Right. Yeah, just picking up those pieces.
In this movie, Rimshot doesn't really serve any narrative purpose other than, hey, Ernest has a dog. I mean, he notices that
Ernest barks at him.
Like a Terminator.
He stops Nash from sexually assaulting Barbara Bush. By the way, this actress's name is Barbara Bush.
Her name is Barbara Bush.
She changed it later, but after the Bush presidency.
Sure. I guess an Ernest Scared Stupid Rimshot serves a stronger narrative purpose. We'll get to that movie whenever the wheel lands on it, I guess.
Gives the villain, he doesn't kick the dog, but he kicks the dog by putting Rimshot in the trash.
Sure.
Poor Rimshot. Rimshot gets into a lot of trouble in his 2 movies, doesn't he?
This is true.
Yeah.
So that was Ernest Goes to Jail.
That was.
At the end of every episode of Ernest Roulette, we rank the Ernest filmography. Ryan, what is our current ranking?
Of the movies you've seen, Ernest Saves Christmas at number 1, Ernest Goes to Camp at number 2, and very last, Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam.
Although we still did like that
We still like that
one.
one. It was hard out of the gate.
Yeah.
I was a dissenting vote, but we're a democracy, all right?
Things are getting a little hairy here on Ernest Roulette. There is no just binary, is this better than this vote? There are too many films, I think.
Too many opinions.
So we're going to start at the bottom and decide, is this film better than the movie at the bottom?
Okay.
Move up one rung in the ladder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So Dr. Otto, is this better than Dr. Otto?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
This is a stronger film than Dr. Otto. Is it better than Ernest Goes to Camp?
My money is yes.
I think I would put it right below Ernest Goes to Camp.
Really?
Yeah.
That low? You'd put it at number 3?
It's tough because I have enjoyed all the movies we've seen so far, but I do prefer the brand of quasi-sincerity that comes with Ernest Goes to Camp.
Sure.
So that's where I'd put it, but I know that you're gonna
trump that.
Yeah.
It's better than Ernest Goes to Camp.
Okay.
So how does this work? Have we broken our system? Because
it's up to you guys. I mean, just keep going without me.
Ryan,
See, here's the worst part is my personal scale would actually, although I would put Jail at number 1, my scale would actually go Jail, Dr. Otto, Christmas Camp. And I still love the oingo boingo weirdness of Otto, but I'm looking at it with, because I haven't looked at it in a while, with rose-tinted glass. Most of Dr. Otto is boring, but I'm not thinking of most. I'm thinking of the Wizard of Speed and Time fun. So Dr. Otto is almost certainly going to be at the last of everyone's list, and I accept that's reality.
for right now.
It's going to be Jail, Christmas, Camp, Otto.
I think that's where we're at right now.
I think that's what it's got to be.
Okay.
Now, if I can change your minds in a future episode, if we go back and look like, oh yeah, Christmas had this over, we probably won't, right?
It's going to be tough, but yeah, I think the vote should be open every time.
Okay. Here's what I'll say about Jail, okay? I think it really depends on your mood while you're watching it. If you're not in a good mood, Jail is going to infuriate you. Whereas I can kind of see Ernest Goes to Camp actually bringing you out of a bad mood.
Especially with the song.
Yeah,
I can absolutely see that.
Yeah.
That's a valid assessment.
I think that's kind of the power of those, of that and Christmas. I think they're just a little bit more genuine, whereas I think you might just need to be like, well, here we go. We're going to watch a fucking Ernest movie in order to get any enjoyment out of it.
Technique in this movie, though, acting in front of and behind the camera.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a very 1990 movie, as I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with putting it in the number 1 slot. So yeah, throw up the list, guys.
And there you have it. Ernest Goes to Jail, as of this episode, is the best Ernest film we have watched on Ernest Roulette, followed by Ernest Saves Christmas, Ernest Goes to Camp, and Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam. Tune in next week when we watch another Ernest film based on Tune in next time when we spin the wheel to let destiny decide what Ernest film we watch next.
Do you want to take bets?